Alright, so I don't typically color grade my videos. I do a lot of these talking head style videos, and then if I'm doing any other kind of video stuff, it's typically going to be a top-down shot of me doing something on my desk. And I don't really feel like color grading really adds to that very much. I get a pretty good shot out of camera, and I don't really need to do anything overly artistic, but I do plan on doing a lot more B-roll, especially now that I'm at the house and I have a little bit more space to be able to maybe set up a particular place just for B-roll. And color grading becomes a little bit more important for that, and even for maybe some more personal projects that I might try to embark on, where adding some kind of stylistic coloring especially would be beneficial. So Dehancer actually reached out to me about checking out their plugin, and their plugin is used for a variety of different programs. I'm going to be showing how it can be used on Davinci Resolve, but they also have plugins for Premiere Pro, for After Effects, for Final Cut Pro, and they even have photo plugins for things like Lightroom, Photoshop, Capture One, and Affinity Photo. Now, I use Lightroom and Photoshop, but they're older versions, the ones before going into the whole subscription service stuff, and I don't think that the plugin is going to be very stable on much older pieces of software. So if I ever do pick those up, I will try to cover those as well. But I will be showing something later called Dehancer Online, which allows me to do stuff with photos. And I've actually been using Davinci Resolve to do a couple things with photos as well, and just kind of play around with it a little bit on photos. So I will show that in a second. Now, before I hop into what I'm doing, they do have a very extensive guide that comes with the installer for Dehancer. So if you are looking to use this for yourself, I definitely suggest checking that out. That's what I used to try to play around with things a little bit. But this walkthrough with me right now is going to be someone who does not color grade at all in a regular timeline. I don't normally do this for my videos. And it's going to be my second time using the software. So you're going to get a very real review as to how easy I think it is to use, how effective I think it is to use. And we're going to be using a couple different types of footage. So we're going to be using some stock footage that I got. We're going to be using one of the kind of somewhat B-roll footages that I had for when I did my S24 Ultra video. And then I'm also going to show it with a picture like I mentioned. So here we are, Resolve. I will quickly show you. So this is what the guide looks like. Again, very extensive. It's 55 pages worth. There's a lot of information here, and they do a pretty good job of kind of telling you the ways that they think you should be using it, and then the ways that you can enhance it or, kind of work around it. And they talk about what everything does, which is pretty awesome. I think it's really great. So let's go back into Davinci, and we will start off here with one of these stock footages. So this is one of just a drifting car, nothing fancy, just kind of simple. And what we're going to do is we're going to throw an adjustment clip on here. This is the way I typically like doing color additions, because it makes it really easy to then remove it, compare it, before and after, stuff like that. So we're going to go into the adjustment clip. We're going to hop into color here. And they suggest you do the very recommended method of doing multiple nodes and having Dehancer be the last or second last node. The last node in that case would be like your sharpen, but they want the Dehancer to be almost last. All of the corrections and everything should be before Dehancer, and then Dehancer should be afterwards. So if we go and add a couple in here, say this one is the stock footage and we're not going to touch it at all. This one's going to be some color corrections. This one will do Dehancer. So you go to your library, you go all the way to the bottom. Dehancer Pro is here. We're going to drop that on there. It's immediately going to make change to what the output looks like. This is actually zoomed in a little bit, but I zoomed in so I can get a little bit of an idea of what it's doing. And we have a whole bunch of settings here. So we can select the source. So the actual image source. So this is a stock footage. I don't know what kind of camera took it, but it was in Rec 709, I believe, when I grabbed it. So here you can change quite a few things really quickly. You can change the exposure. You can change your temperature, your tint, your defringe, all of that kind of stuff. And it is adding a film look to this right now. And you can change the kind of film that it's trying to emulate. So for example, I shoot a lot of film photos on Superior 200. And to be fair, when I compared a few things, they do a pretty good job of replicating those films' color profiles. You can then also do the push and pull. So if you want it to be a push or a pull, is all just kind of dependent on if you overshot or undershot the image. There's a lot of really cool ones here, and I highly suggest if you are going to be using this and you want to add that film effect to your footage, check out all of these. I believe, yeah, it's not as easy as just hitting your down arrow. You're going to have to kind of go through them all, but find one that you like. Fuji stuff, I think, is always fantastic. They do a great job. Everybody knows Caddac. I use Caddac Gold 200 quite a bit as well. You know, Portra is one of the infamous Caddac films that are really expensive, but you get a really good film result out of it. You know, you get a whole bunch of stuff out of these film profiles, and they do a pretty good job. And again, you can enable it or disable it pretty quickly. You can also change the way that the developer works. So if I want to go ahead and enable that, and I can, you know, pump up the contrast or what have you, you can do a lot through these settings here. And then everything can be enabled or disabled, which is really, really handy as well. So you can kind of choose what you want to use and what you don't want to use. And it's very straightforward. They kind of outline everything, and all of these things have a little text when you mouse over it that'll tell you what it's doing. And there's also a more in-depth explanation of what it's doing in the guide as well, which is super great. So the print, I think, changes the way that some of the noise looks. You know, some people will change, oh, that changes it quite a bit actually. So, I mean, it looks pretty cool. I think it looks nice, and it does really add quite a filmic expression to it. And we're back onto the regular. So you can see the difference right there. If we're going through this and we let it play through, and then once the adjustment clip's over and it cuts back to the regular, that's a pretty big difference. It's a pretty big cut. So do keep that kind of stuff in mind. It's a really fun way to play around with colors and to add your own kind of style to stuff, which is really, really nice. And the film grain is what film grain does. So the lower the ISO, the smaller the film grain is going to be, because typically when you are changing your film grain, you're changing the size of the silver halide crystals in the film to try to extract more light in a shorter period of time. So you can make it a lot more grainy, you can make it a lot less grainy. You can make quite a big difference as to how the grain in the image looks, or the noise, if you were thinking about it in a digital perspective. That's how kind of this all edits that out. So that's pretty cool as well. And just like with anything in Resolve, you can either double click the caption for the setting to reset it to defaults, or you can go ahead and use the reset button. Either of them works. I like double clicking on these because it's a little bit easier. It's always closer, so I can just kind of play around with things really quickly. So like if I change this, I'm like, I don't really like it. I just double click it and then click it again. You do get some really cool things, like here you can put like film damage on here, and you can like really rip that up, and it'll kind of make, you don't really notice that much of a difference on this one, I guess. But you can see like little pieces of film damage showing up here. It just may not be super noticeable on this particular piece of footage. But again, a lot of really cool options. I really highly do suggest you do try these out. I do like having my film stuff look a little bit more dated, have a little bit of age to it. Vignettes are a big part of that too. I think vignettes can really add a really nice creative element to a lot of film. So you can change the way the vignette works. You can change how big or how small it is. You can change how bright or dark it makes the image, which is really cool as well. You can change the feathering so that it's softer or harder. So like that is a 0 feather. So it's literally just a hard circle. And then you can make it, a little bit more or less. So I think that's pretty cool as well. I probably wouldn't put it all the way up to 100. I'd probably put it, maybe closer to like a 60 something, and drop that down. And like that gives a pretty nice look to it. And then you can also change the aspect ratio as well. So another really cool thing is that you can actually export this as a LUT. So if you end up setting up something with Dehancer that you really do like and you want to apply it all the time to multiple things, you can go to the LUT generator here and you can export this, and then you can go ahead and apply that to all of your footage going forward just by adding the LUT, which is really, really nice. And I think that's an awesome feature. It makes a lot of sense, and it allows you to very quickly apply the same thing over multiples without having to remember all your settings, which is nice, or having to like copy the adjustment clip, save it, and then use that adjustment clip everywhere. You could just save the LUT, which I think is a lot more convenient. So now if we go back into the editing page, let's get rid of all this. And we're going to go ahead and grab the B-roll that I had with the camera stuff. So that's my old phone. Let's get to something with the new phone. We'll cut this up a little bit. All right. And let's throw an adjustment clip on top. Let's make it the full length here. And let's hop back in here. We'll add our nodes. I'm sure there's a hotkey, but I don't know it off the top of my head. And now I actually know the camera. So it is a Sony A6400, and I am using, yes, the standard S-Log. That looks a little rough. Actually, I don't even know if I'm using. I don't even know if I'm using S-Log on here, especially not on this shot. That is really dark. If I change this back, let's leave it on the Rec 709. I'll try to get this figured out on my own time. But if I wanted to go ahead and grab something that I use a lot, so let's throw that Caddac Gold on there. We'll leave it as a standard. We'll leave the developer. Let's change the vignette a little bit. So let's change that feather down to like mid-60s. Drop the exposure. Oh, I didn't enable it. How silly of me. I think it looks kind of nice. Again, with like product stuff, it doesn't really make as much sense to add like film grain and the kind of stylization that you're doing with Dehancer. I think it makes a lot more sense with images of people or landscape or object photography that's not a product, if that makes sense. But I mean, it could work here. And that's also why I wanted to show what it looks like on like an image. So for example, something that I would use this for is this is a picture I took while I was in Italy. And it's a nice picture, I think. If I want to go ahead, I can actually make changes to this image using Dehancer, and then I can export this image directly from Davinci Resolve. So because I don't have the plugin on Photoshop or Lightroom or anything like that, I can still do some really fun stuff in here using Dehancer just within Resolve, which is kind of cool. And go ahead and throw that on there. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Come on, I want this to be bigger. Okay, we'll just zoom in. Let's go ahead. Let's do portrait 400. Let's change the contrast a little bit. Let's go ahead. Change our film grain. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Add a little bit more noise there. And Should we add some film damage on there? So you can see it when I'm moving it around. It kind of changes where all the damage is and adds a little bit in there. Makes it look a little bit more natural, which is kind of cool. Let's go ahead and throw our vignette on there a little bit. Now the vignette, because I'm using a portrait picture on a landscape canvas, technically, if I really wanted to, I can go ahead and change the timeline resolution like that. And now it's going to apply it a little bit more properly, I would assume. And let's change our aspect ratio. Let's change the feather all the way down so that I can see the aspect ratio. So I want the aspect ratio to look like that. Makes a lot more sense for portrait. Now we can change the feather back up. And we can drop the exposure a little bit. Make it a little bit bigger so it's not crushing it as much. And I think that looks pretty cool. So let's go back to our timeline here real quick. So this is what it looks like with the adjustment clip. And this is what it looks like without it. So it does characterize it a little bit, adds a little bit of style. I think it still looks pretty good. But I do think this does make it look a little bit more like a film photo rather than a digital photo. I think it looks pretty good. I like the way it looks. And, you know, I have been playing around with it a little bit. I haven't had as much time to play around with it as I would like. But as what I've done so far, it's been fun. And I think that's the main thing, is that if you do want to do this, play around with it a little bit, find the settings that you do like, find the profiles that you like, find the film that you like, all that kind of stuff, and then save those LUTs, and then you can apply it to anything and everything. And then if I want to, like I said, just go ahead and press Shift S and you can export this picture wherever you want. Now, as I mentioned, there's also Dehancer Online, which allows you to just really quickly edit images. So this is what I've been doing since I don't have Photoshop and Lightroom, at least the current version, to use with images. And I've been kind of playing around with the Resolve, but you can do it directly using Dehancer Online. So let me go ahead and grab an image. So this is the original image. This is just one of Michelangelo's sculptures in Florence when I was there. And so this is what it looked like right out of the camera, a digital camera, still the A6400 that I was using, that I use for all my videos. That's what it looks like. And then here you have all of these different film styles that you can apply directly to the image. And so let's go ahead and choose something that I like. Doesn't seem like they have as many options as they do within the plugin on Resolve, but they still do have quite a few. Let's grab Portrait 400. Why not? So with this, we can then go ahead and we can change the lighting. So it's a really interesting way that they've kind of set up the editing process, where there's no sliders, there's no nothing. You're kind of just choosing the image that you like the look of the most. So you know what? I actually kind of like the look of this one. I think it might look a little bit too yellow. Maybe let's go this way. I like the look of that one. And then from here, you're able to change the tint. And what I'm doing is I'm just dragging around and kind of going to the tint that I like. I don't really like adding a color to it too much. I don't want to blue it out. I don't want to make it green. I don't want to make it red. So I think that the coloring that we have here makes sense. And then if we want to add effects, that's now where some of these bars come in. So I can increase the grain and make it much more grainy. Although that starts to look really bad because then you start getting the color grain in there. So let's bring that back down. And you can change the bloom and halation if you want to. And now we can kind of look at what the original looks like and what the filmed version looks like. You can make it so that it fills the screen, or you make it a little bit smaller. And then you can also adjust colors individually like you would with like any kind of photo editor. So you can change the exposure, so you can darken it down a little bit. It doesn't do... It takes a little bit. It takes a few seconds to show your result when you make a change, but keep that in mind. But I think this is a really cool way to kind of get some editing in here. And does me resetting that, is that how it looked when I chose the preset? That was my preset. I chose that. So if I reset this kind of overrides what the preset chose. So I have to go back in and choose that preset again. And oh, the lighting. The lighting is what changed it. So the lighting kind of changes some of these automatically for you. But then you can go ahead and you can export it and you can do what you like with it. So that's pretty cool as well. They mentioned the Dehancer Online to me, and I think it's a really quick and easy way to edit some photos and add a little bit of a style to photos. It would be great if you were able to save your own presets. This is still a work in progress for them, I believe. Like, they still have features that are coming soon, like the cropping and stuff. So this is really, really new for them. But one good piece of feedback would be to be able to save presets, save your own presets, so that if you wanted to edit a bunch of pictures to come out the same way, you could do that really quickly and not have to remember all the settings that you're choosing. But yeah, that was Dehancer Online. So for pricing, it's really going to depend on what you end up wanting to use. The video plugin, the photo plugin, and then Dehancer Online are all their own products. As far as I'm aware, there's no way to buy them all as one large bundle. So the video plugin is $450 for a lifetime, and $300 for 1 year, $200 for 6 months, $150 for 3 months. This is a pretty hefty price tag, but for the people who use it a lot, I don't think it matters as much to them. They're getting a lot of use out of this. When looking at other creators that are using Dehancer on a regular basis for all of the videos they put out, they consider it to be such a major component of that. That pricing can make sense. It's great that they offer lifetime licenses. I don't like companies that force you into doing monthly or yearly subscriptions only, so it's nice that they have a lifetime option, but it is a pretty hefty price tag for the video. And I think it is a separate license for each video product. So if you use both Resolve for some things and then Premiere for others, I believe, unfortunately, you have to buy one for Resolve and then you have to buy it for Premiere. Now, the pricing for them is all the same. So Final Cut Pro, Premiere, it's all the exact same pricing, but I believe the licenses are entirely separate. So you have to buy the one that is for whatever software you're using. And if you use multiples, you have to buy both. Now, if we go to the photos, the photo editing pricing is significantly lower. So for the photos, the lifetime is $200, 1 year is $130, 6 months is $90, and 3 months is $70. That is a much easier price for a lot of people to swallow. Again, it's nice that they have a lifetime license here, and this one applies to everything. So it works for Photoshop, for Lightroom, for Capture One, and Affinity. You can just buy the one license and it works for everything. So quite a bit of a difference there, so to keep that in mind. Now, both the video and photo plugins have free trials, so I highly suggest you use that before paying for it to see if it's something that you actually do want to use and it's something that makes sense to you for that price. It is nice that they do have a free trial available. Now, Dehancer Online has a much different pricing structure. So you have $5 for a month, you have $50 for a year, or $50 for a year plus a free shirt. So I think they're doing the shirt thing as a promo since Dehancer Online's kind of new, but it is, again, pretty nice. This pricing structure makes a lot of sense. The 1 month one, you unfortunately do lose the lossless TIFF on the 1 month, But if you're someone who just had a, couple weeks vacation and you're like, oh man, a lot of these photos, I would have loved to have like a little bit more of a film look to them. Pay $5, you can edit all your pictures to have a little bit more of a film look, and super easy to do that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. It's unfortunate that on Dehancer Online, there's no lifetime license available, but they do have the free trial. So again, just like before, highly suggest you use the free trial if you want to see if you like it or not before paying for it. Now, for both Dehancer and Dehancer Online, I do have a promo code for 10% off if you use code Caddac. So if you do want to try these out, even if you're just trying the trial, you can go ahead and throw the promo code in there. And if you do decide to pay for it afterwards, you will get 10% off. So thank you, Dehancer, for giving me that to provide to you guys. And yeah, so what do you guys think about Dehancer? I am enjoying kind of playing around with it. I'm hoping to get some more time to play around with it, and I'm hoping to finally maybe try to get some more footage that I can use something like this for. I'm not great at being cinematic, I don't think. I really do like taking my film photos, and I've been taking an insane amount of film photos, and it would be nice to kind of get a little bit of that feel from the film photos onto my digital photos that I also do take quite a bit of as well. So I am looking forward to kind of trying this out, maybe using the Dehancer Online quite a bit for the photos and seeing if I can kind of emulate a lot of that, because film is expensive. Shooting on film, you got to pay for the film, you got to pay for the processing for the film, you got to pay for them to scan it, and depending on where you live, that can get quite expensive. So having something like this, so that maybe on things where you don't want to use your precious film and maybe you just want to use a digital camera, or things that you've already used the camera for and you're like, you know what, I wish I shot that on film, you can kind of try to capture at least some of that feeling, some of that style that film gives versus just straight digital. With all that said though, I do hope this video helped you out, and if not, I at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you like, subscribed. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can leave those down in the comment section below and I'll try to get them all as quickly as I can. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, and thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you want to see the video where I talked about my film cameras, you're welcome to check out the video right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. See you next time.